You're just a burden to this family, my sister mocked as she took over my room. Nobody wants you here anyway, her husband chimed in. I packed my things quietly. The next morning, everything changed. I first sensed something was wrong when I heard whispers coming from the kitchen at 2 a.m. Moving back in with my parents at 28 wasn't ideal, but after Dad's stroke 8 months ago, it seemed necessary. Mom had to keep working for the insurance, and someone needed to be home during the day. Plus, I could work remotely. That night, I went downstairs for a glass of water and overheard my sister and her husband, Adrian, talking quietly. They didn't visit often, maybe every few weeks, so finding them in the kitchen at that hour was odd. I hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, debating whether to make my presence known. The market is perfect right now, Adrian was saying. We just need to convince them it's the best choice for everyone. Sebastian is the issue, Ivy replied. He's always been Dad's favorite. You know how they are. I stood there, glass in hand, feeling like I had stumbled into something I shouldn't be hearing. Their conversation reminded me of when we were kids, and Ivy would strategize about convincing our parents to let her do things they had already said no to. The next morning, they acted cheerful at breakfast. Mum was flipping pancakes, trying to keep things normal since Dad's stroke. When Ivy cleared her throat and said, "We have some news." Reaching for Adrian's hand, my heart dropped. "We're selling our house." Mom nearly dropped the spatula. "Selling? But you love that house." Adrian jumped in. "We've been thinking about family lately, about being closer, especially with Dad's condition." I watched Dad. He was still struggling to find words, but his eyes were sharp. Confusion or concern flickered in them. Ivy continued, her voice sweet. "We could move in here, just temporarily to help out." That's when I noticed Adrian glance at me for a moment, but it was enough. "Sebastian's room would be perfect for us," Ivy added. "He can work from anywhere, right?" The kitchen fell silent, except for the sound of pancakes starting to burn. Mom turned off the stove, her movements careful. "Sebastian's been here taking care of your father every day, and we're so grateful," she said slowly. Adrian smoothly interjected, "But let's be practical. 2 able-bodied adults would be more helpful than 1. Plus, we could help with household expenses." I sat there with my fork frozen, watching this act unfold. In the 8 months I'd been back, Ivy had visited exactly 6 times, and 3 of those visits were less than an hour long. Things escalated quickly after that. Over the next week, Ivy and Adrian were around constantly, showing up uninvited with reasons to be in various parts of the house. I caught Adrian in Dad's study twice, claiming he was just looking for a pen. The second time, he was by Dad's filing cabinet. The comments started off subtle but got bolder. "It must be nice living rent-free," or "Isn't it time you got your own place?" Always when our parents weren't around. Last night was the breaking point for me. I was helping Dad with his evening physical therapy when Ivy burst in with Adrian. "We need to talk," she announced. "Mom and Dad are asleep." I helped Dad settle into his chair, but before I could respond, Adrian blocked the doorway. Ivy stood in front of me, arms crossed. "You need to stop resisting," she said. "You're just a burden to this family." "Excuse me?" I looked at them. Really looked. Ivy's fancy outfit couldn't hide how tired she looked. Adrian's usual neat appearance was slipping. His shirt was wrinkled, and I saw a desperation in his eyes that I had never noticed before. "If you truly cared about this family," Ivy continued, "you'd step aside and let those who really know how to handle things take over." I glanced at Dad's chair, but they had picked their moment well. He dozed off during our conversation. Looking back, I'm glad he didn't hear his children like this. I didn't argue or defend myself. Their desperation raised alarm bells in my mind. Instead, I went upstairs, packed a bag, and called a nearby extended stay hotel to make a reservation. Before I left, I did 2 things. First, I ordered some small cameras, the type people use for home security. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep an eye on things. Mum agreed when I suggested installing them for Dad's safety. The relief on her face told me she had noticed something too. Second, I made calls to flag Dad's accounts for suspicious activity. Call it paranoia, but seeing Adrian near those financial documents didn't sit well with me. I moved out this morning. Ivy and Adrian looked victorious, but something felt off about their win. The way Adrian started measuring the windows in my old room. How Ivy was already discussing updates for Dad's study. I'm writing this from my hotel room, watching the camera feed on my laptop. They think I've given up and walked away. They don't realize I've just repositioned my pieces. Mom texted me an hour ago. "Adrian asked about your father's pension paperwork. Said he wanted to help organize things. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow morning. Sometimes the best way to protect your family is to let others think they've won." I thought I would feel worse about leaving, But watching Adrian rummage through Dad's desk right now reassures me I made the right choice. The cameras are recording everything. They wanted my room. They can have it. But I have a feeling they're about to learn. Why you shouldn't underestimate the quiet one in the family. Update 1. It's been 24 hours since my last post. And I wish I could say I was just being paranoid. The cameras I installed before leaving captured everything. What I found makes me feel sick. I spent last night going over the footage, while trying to make myself comfortable in the hotel. Around 11 p.m., after our parents went to bed, Ivy and Adrian had what they thought was a private talk in my old room. The audio isn't perfect, but I heard enough. We don't have a choice anymore, Adrian was saying, pacing back and forth. The deadline is in 2 weeks. Ivy sat on my old bed, her head in her hands. I know, but forging Dad's signature. Adrian, if we get caught, if we don't do this, we'll lose everything. The house isn't just being sold. We're being evicted. Do you want everyone to know that? That caught my attention. They weren't selling their house at all. The conversation got worse. Adrian talked about an investment opportunity that went wrong and clients threatening legal action. He mentioned numbers that made my stomach turn. The kind that ruin lives. Your parents' house has so much equity, he said. If we can get the refinancing approved. But Sebastian's going to notice, Ivy interrupted. He's always checking their accounts. That's why we needed him gone. Look, I've got the paperwork ready. We just need your dad's signature. Once we have that, we can access enough to cover what we need, and no one will know. I watched my sister, the same one who used to sneak me cookies when Mum said no, who taught me how to ride a bike, nod slowly. What about the retirement accounts? That's when I stopped the footage and called the bank, not our parents' local branch, but their corporate fraud department. The lady on the phone was very helpful once I explained the situation. They had already flagged an attempted mortgage application in Dad's name because the signature didn't match their records. I spent the rest of the night documenting everything. This morning, I met with an elder law attorney. The meeting was eye-opening. Apparently, what Adrian and Ivy were trying to do wasn't just wrong. It was a federal crime. The attorney helped me file for an emergency guardianship hearing and contacted the appropriate authorities. But the real shock came when I decided to look into Adrian's background. Public records can be revealing. There's an ongoing investigation against him for financial misconduct, with multiple complaints from former clients. His company has been quietly asking people to remove online reviews mentioning his name. I needed to inform our parents, but I wanted to be smart about it. Instead of confronting Ivy and Adrian directly, I went to the house while they were out house hunting, whatever they were really up to. Mom was in the kitchen when I arrived, trying to teach Dad how to use his new adaptive utensils. The normalcy of the scene hit me hard. They had no clue what their daughter was planning. Sebastian, Mom looked surprised. I thought you were staying at the hotel for a while. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out my laptop, and showed them the footage. Mum's face went pale when she heard Ivy and Adrian's conversation. Dad's hands started shaking, not from his condition, but from anger. There's more, I said gently. Mom, remember those papers Ivy's been asking you to sign? The ones about helping with the bills? Mom's eyes widened. She rushed to get her purse and pulled out a stack of documents. The attorney had warned me about this. Power of attorney forms, transfer of property documents, loan applications, all waiting for signatures. I almost signed them yesterday, Mom whispered. Ivy said it was to help with Dad's medical expenses. Dad managed to voice what we were all thinking. Stop them. I showed them the legal documents. I had prepared with the attorney forms to protect their assets, revoke any prior powers of attorney, and alert their bank to the attempted fraud. They signed everything immediately. As I write this, I'm still at their house. Ivy and Adrian are due back any minute. They don't know that their mortgage application was denied. They don't know about the cameras. They don't know that I've spent the day helping our parents secure everything they own. The doorbell just rang. Mom is answering it. It should be the attorney I hired, right on time. We're having a family meeting in 1 hour when Ivy and Adrian return. Everything is going to come out. I can hear a car pulling into the driveway now. I moved the camera in the living room for a better angle. Our parents are ready. The attorney is here. Time to see how my sister explains trying to steal our father's life savings. I'll update again after the meeting. I suspect this isn't going to go the way Ivy and Adrian planned. Update 2. I've been staring at my screen for an hour, trying to figure out how to write this update. The family meeting happened 3 days ago, and I'm still processing everything that occurred. Let me start with when Ivy and Adrian walked in. They were laughing about something, shopping bags in hand, acting carefree. Their laughter vanished when they saw everyone in the living room. Mom and Dad on the couch, me in Dad's armchair, and a stranger in a suit sitting at our dining room table with a stack of papers. What's going on? Ivy's voice wavered slightly, her eyes darting between us, lingering on the papers. Adrian stepped forward, smooth as ever. Is everything okay? We weren't expecting a family gathering. Sit down, Dad said. His speech has been improving, and he chose this moment to demonstrate it perfectly. They sat down. I noticed Ivy's hand tremble as she set her shopping bags aside. Adrian loosened his collar slightly, a nervous habit I had never noticed before. Mom spoke first, her voice steady but sad. We know about the mortgage application. Ivy, the one with your father's forged signature. The color drained from Adrian's face. Ivy started to speak, but he cut her off. There must be some mistake. I opened my laptop and played the video. Their late-night talk about eviction, fraud, everything. The room filled with their own voices, their own confessions. You recorded us? Ivy whispered, her face a mix of shock and betrayal. Yes, I did. That's when everything exploded. Adrian jumped up, pointing at me. You had no right. This is an invasion of privacy. We could sue. Sit down. The attorney's voice broke through Adrian's outburst like a knife. Before we discuss the multiple federal crimes you've attempted to commit, let's talk about your current legal situation. He began laying out documents. The pending investigation against Adrian, the complaints from clients, the evidence of attempted identity theft. With each new paper, Adrian seemed to shrink into the couch. Then came the shocking revelation that stopped everyone cold. The attorney discovered that Adrian had opened 3 credit cards in Dad's name. He had been using them for months. Ivy's face fell. Adrian, you said we were just going to borrow against the house. You never said. What was I supposed to do? He snapped. After the investment failed, everyone wanted their money back. Your shopping sprees didn't help either, Mom interjected. My shopping? Ivy's voice rose. What about the gambling sites on our credit card statement? It was like watching a dam break. Every secret and lie they had been keeping from each other came pouring out. The house they were selling was actually in foreclosure. Adrian's company was under investigation for mismanaging client funds. Ivy had been hiding their financial issues from everyone, including our parents, out of shame. Dad sat through it all, his face growing more serious with each revelation. When the shouting finally stopped, he spoke slowly and deliberately. You tried to steal from us. No! Ivy protested, tears streaming down her face. We were desperate. We were going to pay it back. With what money? Mom's question hung in the air. Nobody had an answer. The attorney cleared his throat. Here's what's going to happen. First, Mr. and Mrs. Sebastian's parents have signed papers revoking any power of attorney and adding fraud. Alerts to all their accounts. Second, the credit card companies have been informed of the identity theft. Third, he looked directly at Adrian. The authorities have been notified of your attempts to defraud your in-laws. Adrian stood up so fast he knocked over a lamp. You can't prove anything. Ivy, tell them we were just trying to help. But Ivy wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at the floor, shaking. How much did you steal from your clients? The question seemed to deflate him. I can fix this. I just need time. Time's up, the attorney said, nodding toward the window. 2 police cars had pulled up outside. What followed was surreal. Adrian was escorted out in handcuffs, ranting about how everyone had betrayed him. Ivy sat on our couch with mascara running, looking lost. Mom went to the kitchen and started baking, her way of coping. Dad wheeled himself to his study, saying he needed time to think. I found Ivy in my old room later that night after the police had left. She was sitting on my bed, looking at an old photo of us as kids. I didn't know about the credit cards, she whispered. I knew we were in trouble, but I didn't know how bad. He kept saying he could fix everything if we just had access to Dad's equity. I wanted to believe him. Why didn't you come to us for help? I asked. She looked up, torn between shame and relief. Because admitting everything was falling apart meant admitting I failed, that my perfect life was a lie. The police called this morning. They found evidence on Adrian's laptop of extensive financial fraud. He wasn't just stealing from family. His entire business was built on lies. Ivy's meeting with a divorce lawyer is tomorrow. I moved back home today. My room still smells like Ivy's perfume, but the shopping bags are gone. Mom baked enough cookies to feed an army. Dad has been quieter than usual, but he squeezed my hand when I sat next to him for evening TV. There's a family counseling session scheduled for next week. Ivy has agreed to attend. The attorney says there's still a lot to sort out legally, but at least the immediate threat to our parents' finances has ended. Sometimes doing the right thing feels terrible, but watching Mum sleep peacefully tonight, knowing their retirement is secure, makes it worth it. As for Ivy, well, that's a longer road ahead. Final update. They say revenge is best served cold. Well, I've spent 6 months preparing, and now it's time. Remember Adrian, who tried to steal my parents' life savings and called me a burden? He's currently sharing a cell with someone who doesn't appreciate his financial advice. But that's just the beginning. Let me fill you in on how everything unfolded after my last update. I didn't just sit back and let the justice system take care of things. I got organized. Remember those cameras I set up? They recorded more than just conversations about fraud. They captured every phone call Adrian made from our house, every document he accessed, every email he checked on our Wi-Fi. I hired a forensic investigator to go through everything. It turns out Adrian wasn't just stealing from family and clients. He was running a whole network of scams. The investigators found offshore accounts, fake companies, and a long list of victims dating back years. Each discovery felt like unwrapping a gift. But here's where it gets interesting. Remember how Ivy was always flaunting their perfect life on social media, designer clothes and expensive vacations? That house they were so proud of, all funded by stolen money. And thanks to something called proceeds of crime laws, everything had to be sold to pay back their victims. Ivy is facing her own consequences during the divorce proceedings. Evidence showed she knew more than she claimed. Those shopping sprees were paid for with stolen funds, and the vacations were funded by elderly victims' retirement accounts. Her perfect social media life crashed spectacularly when everything went public. The best part? I found Adrian's hidden laptop in our attic last month. He had stashed it there during the chaos of moving in. The files were encrypted, but I know people who can help. What we found was better than Christmas. Hundreds of emails. Adrian bragging to friends about manipulating my sister, how he planned to drain my parents' accounts, how he saw our family as an easy target. He even had a spreadsheet on how much he could steal before anyone noticed. I sent copies to everyone, his family, friends, old college buddies, and every country club member he bragged to about his success. The responses were satisfying, but I saved the real fireworks for last. Remember those clients he stole from? I tracked them all down. I made sure they had everything. The evidence, the emails, his prison details. Some were elderly couples who lost their entire retirement. Others were small business owners who trusted him with their savings. They formed a support group. They're suing not just Adrian, but his entire family, who benefited from the stolen money. His parents, who lived in that vacation house he bought with stolen funds. They're losing it. His brother, who got investments for his startup. The company is being liquidated. Ivy tried to play the victim card. But those shopping spree receipts tell a different story. The bankruptcy court is particularly interested in her designer handbag collection. Apparently, buying luxury items with stolen money is frowned upon. She's working at a mall now, the same mall where she used to spend thousands. Last week, Adrian's cellmate started sharing stories on prison forums about Adrian's daily life behind bars. Apparently, he cries himself to sleep. His tough guy act lasted 2 days before reality set in. He tried to use his financial knowledge to gain respect. But that didn't go well in a place full of people who despise fraudsters. Mom is doing better. She's actually smiling again. Dad's speech therapy is showing real progress. It turns out stress was making his recovery harder. They're taking a vacation next month, their first in years. I made sure it's paid for with legitimate funds, unlike some people's trips. Oh, and that emergency guardianship I filed for? The court made it permanent. I now legally control all family financial decisions. Every penny Adrian tried to steal is not only safe, but has been invested wisely. The returns are already paying for Dad's medical care. The karma train isn't finished, though. Last month, a documentary maker contacted me. They're doing a series on financial fraudsters, and Adrian's case will be episode 1. I provided them with everything: the recordings, the emails, the evidence of his elaborate schemes. His face will be famous, just not in the way he planned. Ivy called yesterday asking to meet. She said she has things she wants to explain. I agreed, but not at home. We're meeting at the courthouse cafe. It seemed fitting. I've got a recorder ready, just in case she tries to spin more lies. Adrian has 15 years to think about his choices. His appeals were denied last week. His former clients are making sure his story is shared everywhere he might try to restart his schemes after his release. Sometimes I sit in my old room, the one they tried to take, and read the letters from Adrian's victims, thanking me for exposing him. Each one feels like justice. The quiet one in the family? Not so quiet anymore. They wanted to destroy my family for their greed. Instead, they destroyed themselves. And I got to watch it happen, one perfectly legal and carefully planned step at a time. Dad said something interesting yesterday. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to them, he said, his speech clearer than ever. It's making sure they live with what they did to themselves. I'm meeting Ivy in an hour. The recorder is charged. and I have copies of every document showing her involvement. Time to serve the final course of this cold dish. This will be my last update. Some stories end with forgiveness. This one ends with justice. If you enjoyed this Reddit story and want to hear more, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling content. Your support means a lot. Thank you for being part of this journey.